television. It's another beautiful day, and it's Friday, of course, here in the nation's economic capital, Douala. And you're on to your favorite bilingual program, The Brief, dedicated to the review of striking headlines in the papers. This morning, the English language newspapers are focusing on the recent move taken by President Paul Biya to send two of his ministers to Cairo, Egypt, to plead on behalf of the government of Cameroon for CAF not to suspend the opening match that was supposed to be played at the Olembe Sports Complex in Yaoundé. We shall be telling you more on that two-man delegation that has been dispatched by President Paul Biya to Cairo, Egypt. We shall equally tell you about the list of candidates for the FECAFOOT elections come December 11th. The Electoral Commission at FECAFOOT made the list public yesterday, and amongst the 6 persons that will be vying for the post of the president of FECAFOOT are the former Indomitable Lions of Cameroon. We're talking about former Indomitable Lions Captain Samuel Eto'o and the interim president of FECAFOOT, Seydou Mbombo Njoya. Bomotonguina Gwladys is here. Let's listen to the headlines that she has for us this morning. Bonjour Gwladys et bon week-end.
Merci beaucoup. Bonjour à toi, Lasha. Bonjour à vous qui nous regardez. Et merci de nous retrouver pour deux briefs ce matin, votre émission de revue de presse bilingue sur ma Média Prime Télévision. Alors, effectivement, la presse écrite ce matin parle des élections à la FECAFOOT au Cameroun, plus précisément de la candidature de Samuel Eto'o qui a été validée. Alors ce matin, rapidement, nous allons débuter avec le journal Le Jour qui parle de la vie chère au Cameroun, un calvaire pour la ménagère. Les détails sont en page 2 et 3 de ce journal. En page 11, le journal parle des élections à la FECAFOOT. Nous continuons avec l'œil du Sahel qui parle de la reconstruction de l'extrême nord. Les députés nordistes passent à l'offensive. Les détails sont en page 3 de ce journal. Nous poursuivons ce matin avec l'info à chaud qui parle des élections à la présidence de la FECAFOOT. L'association des anciennes Lyonnes soutient donc Eto'o. Les détails sont en page 2 de ce journal. En page 3, le journal parle du fait que Eto'o soit prêt déjà à résoudre les problèmes du football camerounais. Le Goliath de football de ce pays promet qu'en 4 ans, on pourra voir ses prouesses. Nous continuons donc ce matin avec la voix des jeunes, toujours qui parle d'Eto'o sur le chemin de la FECAFOOT. La candidature de l'ancien capitaine des Lions Indomptables a été validée ce mercredi 25 novembre 2021 par la commission électorale. Eto'o promet donc d'encadrer avec maîtrise la FECAFOOT afin de redonner toute sa grandeur au football camerounais. Il est donc désormais à un pas d'être président pour la gloire du ballon au Cameroun. Les détails sont en page 2 de ce journal. C'est ici que nous nous arrêtons pour cette revue de presse en langue française. Place à la découverte de ces journaux en langue anglaise avec toi, Lasha.
Thank you, Gwladys. Let's kick start with the Guardian Post newspaper. The Guardian Post this morning is interested in the move taken by President Paul Biya yesterday after CAF's threat to disqualify Olembe Stadium. Biya hurriedly dispatches Ngongo to plead Cameroon's case. According to the paper, the 13th extraordinary or the 33rd extraordinary session of the General Assembly of Football or Confederation of Football, African Football, CAF, takes place in Cairo, Egypt today, and we are told that discussions are expected to be storming when assessments will be made on Cameroon's readiness to host the 33rd edition of the AFCON Cup of Nations. As we are told by the paper, in what sports pundits say is a move to avoid a second embarrassment to the nation after that of 2019. The head of state, President Paul Biya, yesterday hurriedly dispatched the Minister of State, Secretary General of the Presidency, Ferdinand Ngongo, and the Minister of Sports and Physical Education, Professor Narcisse Mwele Kombi to attend the meeting or the strategic meeting which takes place today. The move analysts have postulated is seen as a desperate attempt by the government of Cameroon or the Yaoundé regime to get the two members of government plead Cameroon's case in or in front of the CAF or in front of the CAF officials in Cairo, Egypt today. A press statement from the presidency surfaced yesterday in which Ferdinand Gongo and Narcisse Mwele Kombi were assigned by President Paul Biya to go take part in that meeting. We stay with the Guardian Post newspaper to talk about the upsurge in the killing of school children in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. Nico Hale questions suspicious silence of UN, EU and African Union. You can get more details about the Peace Crusaders lambasting this international organization only in this edition of the Guardian Post newspaper. Let's talk about National Assembly, where the government, or today Prime Minister Chief Dr. Joseph Diongute will unveil the 2022 socio-economic and financial program of Cameroon. You can get more details in this edition of the said newspaper on page 5. Let's now take you to Municipal Updates. Municipal Updates newspaper is focusing on the fake village that was created in Tiko subdivision. BIA receives a hot file on a non-existent Tiko Douala village, the village that was reportedly created by the senior divisional officer of FACO, and the move has not been received or well received by the population and traditional ruler in Tiko subdivision. More details in this edition of the Municipal Updates. We end with The Voice. The Voice newspaper is revisiting the ugly scenes in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, where there has been an upsurge in the killing of school children and other civilians. This time around, the paper is telling us that school children slaughtered again in the southwest region. It should be recalled that armed men believed to be Ambazonia fighters stormed government bilingual high school at Kondo Titi, detonating a bomb before opening fire on school children who were receiving lectures at about 7:40 that fateful day. We are told by the said newspaper that 4 students of Form 2 were killed, with a female French language teacher, and several others are receiving treatment at in a hospital or medical facility in the southwest region of Cameroon. Thank you for watching, televiewers. We are back in the studio to continue with our discussions this morning, and Bane Evis is joining us once again from the nation's political capital, Yaoundé. Good morning, Evis, and welcome once again.
Good morning, Lasha, Kingsley, and good morning to all your co-panelists in the studio and to all viewers of my media.
Gongo and Narcisse Mwele Kombi on their way to Cairo, Egypt.
Well, it is just another way the regime is using to disgrace Cameroonians, if I may put it that way, at the international scene. Because you know the Olympic Stadium was announced to Cameroonians more than 10 years ago. We know 2 years back in 2019, they embarrassed us by not permitting Cameroonians to have the glory, the honor to organize the competition that they were supposed to host in 2019. And today, a few days only to the Nations Cup, they are acting as though they were surprised by the whole thing, and they are sending ministers to go and plead our case. You understand that incompetence is the only thing that characterizes this regime. Everything that they are supposed to do always comes to them as though it were a surprise. But of course, we know how many billions have been invested in this same stadium, which today has denied to ever see completion. So I think,
but don't you think that the contractors could be partially blamed for not respecting the cahier de charge that was given to them?
Mr. Lasha, over 10 years. I said the stadium was announced to us 10 years ago.
Announced. But when were construction works?
If we take into consideration the fact that we already had a tournament that we were supposed to host in that same stadium in 2019, and it failed. And 2 years after, we are still going to plead. I don't only think that the problem should be the contractors. Those who issued out the contract, at least they should be able to equally mount some pressure and take other measures to see into it.
Do you really think that Cameroon had that kind of money to complete the stadium and did not do it on time?
I will tell you that our problem in this country has never been the means to be able to build such a stadium. The problem is that those who are at the head of it have been mismanaging the funds, and that's why we are where we are today. Remember that they told us that a bag of cement used to cost, I think, over 16,000 francs, and a truck of sand cost over 700,000 francs in Cameroon. Between Olembe and the Sanaga, where the sand comes from, we know how much it costs. So you understand that the budget was there, people embezzled it, and today they act as though they are surprised by the fact that they are running after time. And like I said, they keep embarrassing all of us Cameroonians by telling ministers to go and plead.
Elvis, is it today that CAF knows that Olembe is not ready? We've seen delegations or delegation coming from CAF. They have visited Cameroon severally, and when they leave the presidency or the Olembe itself, the kind of statement they make after or they used to make after their visit and what they are saying now do not conform with reality.
You know, one thing with these international organizations, at one point, I always say, like I was saying on your platform yesterday still, Mr. Lasha, is that to some extent, all of them are hypocrites, you see. And then secondly, we may want to think that CAF has been playing a certain game, trying to, in the hope that maybe they could keep giving time for the government to see how they hasten up with the project, with the work, such that it gets completed on time and in time. But unfortunately, they may be realizing that the state may still end up failing them like they did in 2019. And that's why perhaps they have come up with this new statement threatening that Olembe may not host the first match as a means of maybe calling the government's attention to the fact that they need to either hasten up or truly they may not have to host the first match in that particular stadium.
Okay, I will come back to you. Let me take the same question to Joengo. For her to tell us what she thinks about President Paul Biya sending Gongo and Narcisse Kombi to Cairo, Egypt.
I think, like the paper said, I think the delegation that was dispatched by the president, I think it is just to avoid embarrassment. But the embarrassment is already there. Imagine Olembe Stadium not being able to host the opening match. That's a stadium, like Mr. Elvis was saying, that's a stadium that has been under construction. We are talking about the Olembe Stadium. We are talking about stadiums in Cameroon. That's supposed to be the pride of our country. When
we have Japan already.
We have Japan. If they are sending this delegation, it means that they know how important that stadium is. It's going to be an embarrassment. It means that it's just left maybe a little for Cameroon not to host the competition. Might not be able to leave Yaoundé and come to Douala. Well, I don't want to think that way. This stadium we are talking about, it is supposed to be one of the greatest stadiums in Cameroon, if not one of the greatest stadiums in Africa.
It is a complex, because you have hotel facilities, you have other
this
stuff.
Stadium was set aside to open the African Cup of Nations. It was not used in 2016 because it was still under construction for the female AFCON female.
Who is to blame? The contractors, because it's not one contractor that.
If the contractors are to blame,
the government, the ministry that the monies were put at their disposal. I cannot blame
the contractors, because if it is the contractor, the government is the one giving the money, and the government has the right to sanction these contractors if the work is not going as planned.
If you go for a contract, for example, there are so many things involved. So many.
If it was the contractors,
if you go for a contract, for example, the people that are giving you the contract, they insist that you must give them a certain percentage. You as a company, and you have your principle, you accept to take that contract with the percentages that you'll be giving them, knowing fully whether what will be left, you will not be able to do the job.
I don't want to blame the contractor.
Why should we take the contract?
Because the people who are disbursing the money, who actually fund the project, they are supposed to know that if the work is not going as they want it, they can sanction the contractor, or they take the contract and give it to another company. The government sits quiet because they know that the agreement that they have with the contractors, it is not the contractors' fault. They only wait for the funds to come, and they pay the workers, and that's how the work goes. If the contractor sits and the money does not come, what do they do?
Elvis, there is this issue that, if a project that the face value, let us put it, the intrinsic value of a project, for example, 100 million, that's what it has to be used, the cost to construct, probably just say a classroom. Before that money gets to the contractor, that money can never be that amount. Those are verifiable facts. So how do you blame?
Of course, Mr. Lasha.
How do you blame the government or the contractor itself? Because so many people are involved. They don't have the free hand. If you refuse, they give the contract to a different person.
Why are there so many persons involved? and from the source of the money till the final destination, which is the contractor. We should be able to know how much was disbursed and how much got to the contractor, and those in between who did not hand the complete sum should be answerable. They should be able to explain where the other portion of the money went to. But that's why I started by saying we have a government that is totally incompetent, and everything is designed by the system to favor corruption, bribery, embezzlement. The regime knows, the head of state himself, who are his ministers under him working, he knows that that's how the system operates. So I don't think, like you were asking my Ngong in the studio there, Mr. Lasha, I always have the attitude of saying that the sole blame begins with those at the helm, because they know how this thing happens. Ordinary Cameroonians see it and they declare on a daily basis, but they never do anything to change. Remember that 4 years before they failed a competition in 2019, they knew already that they were supposed to use that stadium. 4 years after it failed, we are 2 years after 2019. It is still a failure, and they are sending ministers to go and plead. And if we are blaming it on contractors that funds were never enough or all one not, the question is, how much do they themselves tell Cameroonians that they have disbursed from about 2016 up to about 2021 today?
Why would you as a contractor, accept
the money and hold them accountable?
Why would you as a contractor accept to take a contract when you know fully well that the means that they are giving you will not be able to execute
I don't think the fault here is on the contractors, Mr. Lasha. I really don't think that we have to blame the contractors for this project. Like Mr. Evans was saying, if the government, because if this thing fails, the blame will not go on the contractors, the blame will go on the government. It's the government that has to supervise that the project is going on well. You know, if the government does not give enough funds to the contractors, what do they do? Or is the government that has to pressure the contractors? Even all of the pressure that CAF was putting since 2019, it already failed. They knew that we have just barely 2 years to host the competition again. And if the government or the people who are in charge of disbursing the funds saw that the project is not going, they take the contract from the so-called contractors and give it to another contractor. I don't think
but that's what has happened at Olembe.
So I don't think that
Elvis,
it is
if I'm right,
yes,
that's what happened at Olembe, right?
What I want, pardon?
That's what happened at Olembe. The contract was taken from the first contractor and given to another contractor.
And it has not still been delivered. So
the big problem is not just taking the contract from the first person and giving to the second, but finding out why it didn't succeed with the first contractor before you get it to the second. And that's another thing with the regime. We don't always want to go in for the root causes of the problem. We just want to take some conspicuous measures just that do not actually solve a problem. You ask a very pertinent question, Mr. Lasha. If you call a builder that you need him to build a house for you worth 10 million, and you say you have just 3 million at hand, he takes the 3 million and maybe implants the foundation, and he waits for you to complete the next sum. He will not tell that he cannot start with what you have at hand. No, he takes and does what he can do with your 3 million while expecting that you complete the sum. And I want to think that that is the difficulty that contractors are facing with
President Paul Biya disbursed another 55 billion.
Contractors come out to complain.
There was another 55 billion, additional 55 billion that was ordered by President Paul Biya to be disbursed.
There was an additional, yes, but did the money all go to the contractor? That is the question. And that's why I keep saying there should be a fact-finding commission that actually detect where the money went to, and then the people who siphoned the money should be brought to book. Remember that Cameroonians brought out facts and statistics about what happened in 2019 before we failed to organize the tournament in 2019. But today, the same people who were piloting the project are still there, and we even saw them given the responsibility to also pilot the COVID-19, what became known as the COVID gate. You understand that people fail in one project and Mr. Biya promotes them to the next project without ever finding out what happened that they failed within the first project or whatever thing. Why? Because I say it is a system well organized by the regime to ensure that things do not move the right way they are supposed to move, and that's the unfortunate thing we are facing. And at the end of the day, like I say, Cameroon as a whole is embarrassed, like it is the situation now, where they need to send ministers to go out
just to mention that. Just to mention that these are the same people who keep assuring Cameroonians every day that this project is going to be delivered. Even when CAF sent the threat a couple of days ago, these same ministers assured us that no, by the end of the month, the project is going to be delivered, and we are going to exactly. These are the same people that keep assuring.
On the 26th today, right?
On the 26th, in 4 days time. These are the same people who keep assuring Cameroonians that everything is under control and the project is eventually going to be delivered.
Many Cameroonians, some people are sending me messages. They are blaming CAF for their hypocritical nature, that when CAF's delegation came to Cameroon, they didn't tell Cameroonians the truth. I just have a message here that somebody sent to me. That we shouldn't only be blaming the government, we should equally blame CAF.
That's what I was saying.
I started by saying that, Mr. Lasha, that when we talk about international organizations, they themselves are hypocritical.
Okay.
It is like the same thing happening in the Northwest and Southwest today. Where
yes, this takes me to the next question. Yes. This takes me to the next question. Barrister Tumfo Nikohale is worried over the conspicuous silence of the international community. He cited UN, EU, and AU for the upsurge in the killings of school children as well as civilians. The Norway he says that the UN, EU, and AU is silent over, or they are silent over the issues or what is happening in the Northwest. Do you think it is a responsibility of the international community, not Cameroonians, to end what is happening in those regions?
It is all our responsibility, Cameroonians and all the organizations we are citing. Unfortunately, if I begin with people like the AU, to me the AU is almost a non-existent organization, because nowhere in Africa have we seen the AU actually act responsibly as we Africans would have expected it to act. AU is like an overseas branch of the EU or the UN. So all of them, like I say, AU, EU, and the UN are all hypocrites. They pretend as though they don't know what is happening, and each time there are killings, they say they condemn in strongest terms. I have often said, Mr. Lasha, I don't always understand what people mean by condemning in strongest terms.
No, but you often use it now. You should tell us.
I often said that
you politicians have been using it now. You say you condemn. When you write your communique, you are the National Communications Secretary to Popular Action Party. When you write, you also say condemn now. What do you also mean by condemn? Can you tell us? Yes.
Thank you for that question. Let me tell you something. I have said I don't believe in people saying they condemn in strongest terms, because I don't understand the meaning of that word.
You've been using the word. You've been using the word.
To me, is supposed to. Well, like you say, I'm the communication center for the PAP, right? If you read my communiques, you will never see the issue strongest terms in what I write each time such things happen.
But
why? Because like I say, we of the PAP, we believe in actions. We believe in actions. The unfortunate thing is that at the level of Cameroon, we have a regime in place that muzzles every other person, and each time we organize even, let me say, peaceful demonstrations, it becomes a reason why we should be tagged and maybe arrested or things of that nature. But now the UN you are talking about, or the AU or the EU, these are people who have a certain leverage, who have a certain power to be able to bring down some bearing pressure, be it on the state or the armed fighters. But we have not seen them done any such thing, not even for once.
What exactly do you want them to do? Like Tumfo Nikohale, unfortunately, if he's watching,
that could already first be meted against, even there are sanctions that could be meted even against the regime in Yaoundé. Are we together? Take some of when you talk about members of the EU and the UN, for instance, do not forget that some of the member states of the same EU and UN are the same people training the same forces that go out there and burn houses and kill children, supplying
and then they're equally harboring some of the leaders there. You remember they're harboring some of them. I mean, some of the separatist leaders who also commit atrocities.
That is why I say they are hypocritical, because there are several things that they could do, you see, to make sure that these things come to an end. We have even said the UN, for instance, could even try to step in with a peacekeeping mission in that part of the country, something which they have never done. And it is as though it is a non-existing affair to them, and each time there are
has any of those peace missions ever succeeded in resolving conflict in any country in the world? Cite me one, please, if you have.
Let me tell you, the idea for now, as every other person stands and says, is that there should at least be a call for ceasefire. And when we talk about the UN setting in any peacekeeping mission, the truth is that if they were to step in, at least the violence in that part of the country will have to reduce. But that is something, like I said, they have never done. They have never taken that move in that direction, but they keep saying they condemn in strongest terms, and that's what I say I do not understand, and I call them hypocrites.
But they believe there is still an internal quarrel. They believe that it's a quarrel within the family. So it is not something that warrants their intervention.
Mr. Lasha, it comes back to what I keep saying. It shows that the organizations are failing woefully, especially beginning with the AU, which I describe as an overseas branch of the EU and the UN, because when you look at them, they are just a club of hand clappers. we have never seen them in Africa anywhere take concrete measures or decisions of their own. It is like they are a resounding drum.
But how do you expect them? How do you expect them to take concrete action when the building hosting them or their offices was constructed by China, and they usually have their representative of EU and the rest during their sessions? Do you really think they can be
Lasha,
independent?
And that's why I think you and I are saying the same thing.
So what should they do? What should they do to have a free hand?
If the AU was to act exactly as we Africans expect it to act for the purpose for which it was created, then we should expect that when we have situations like we have in Cameroon today, they should be able to have a standing force at least that can come to intervene.
We have ECOWAS. We have ECOWAS. We have ECOWAS in Africa. We have ECOWAS that has been doing a lot when it comes to resolving conflicts in Africa. It's even more powerful than the AU.
ECOWAS has been doing what they have been doing, and you said they have been actually more powerful than the AU. We were talking about the AU. Where is the AU? And even the ECOWAS, yes, they have been doing a lot, but at certain moments, at times, you see them being quite somehow selective in where they intervene and where they do not intervene, or you find them intervening to support the wrong persons against the people that they are supposed to stand for.
Sorry,
and,
Elvis.
that's what I say.
Sorry, Elvis, we have to end here. We have to end here today. Thank you very much. Thank you for taking our time to join us this morning for the program. Thank you to Nsungkikang. Thank you, Gwladys. Thank you, televiewers of My Media Prime, for watching the last edition of the Brief for the Week on My Media Prime Television. Hopefully, we'll be with you together on Monday for yet another edition of What the Papers Must Have Said. Bye-bye.